On February 1, 2025, the United States took a significant step in its trade policy by imposing new tariffs on goods from Mexico, Canada, and China. These tariffs, 25% on goods from Mexico and Canada, and 10% on goods from China, are projected to have a substantial impact on the US economy. While the stated goal of these tariffs is to reduce trade deficits and bolster domestic manufacturing, experts predict a ripple effect of economic consequences, perhaps in the short term, that is not guaranteed. In the long term, it makes America stronger. Domestic produce options will become the norm and may be cheaper than foreign alternatives, or it will be a balance. Prices may go up on some products coming from overseas, while domestically made products may be cheaper and made at a higher quality standard. The tariffs are expected to directly impact the prices of everyday items coming from these foreign players, but normalized to align with domestic manufacturing. Chinese imports like apparel, toys, and electronics are likely to become more expensive. The tariffs on Mexican and Canadian goods will put upward pressure on food prices, particularly for fresh produce and processed foods. Some energy costs could be initially affected, as Canada is a major supplier of oil to the United States. But the US has its own energy and will likely switch to domestic production. These price hikes are likely to strain household budgets and could lead to a decrease in consumer spending initially, but America has tax cuts planned to offset the price hikes and keep the economy going strong. Any decrease in spending could cause initially negative repercussions throughout the economy, potentially affecting economic growth until those tax cuts offset this. Beyond consumer prices, the tariffs are also projected to have broader economic consequences longer term in favor of the US. Some economists hate the idea in fear of a trade war, while others see the big picture around making America great again. Though there is potential for retaliatory tariffs from China, Mexico, and Canada, the US still has the most to gain by imposing them due to unfair trade practices that have been imposed on the US for a long time. The tariffs could limit choices for American consumers. The impact on businesses is another major concern. American companies that rely on imports from these countries will face higher costs, which they may have to pass on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This could make American goods more competitive both domestically. Import businesses may experience disruptions in their supply chains as they adjust to the new tariffs. Some companies might consider stockpiling imports before the tariffs take effect, while others might seek alternative suppliers in other countries. The Trump administration projects that the new tariffs will generate approximately $1.3 trillion in revenue by 2035. Given the US deficit, this is a major benefit. This revenue, according to the administration, could be used to offset the costs of recent tax cuts, which are projected to exceed $5 trillion over the next decade. The exact revenue generated from the tariffs in 2025 and beyond remains uncertain. The revenue generated from tariffs is dependent on several factors. The volume of imports from China, Mexico, and Canada will play a crucial role. If the tariffs lead to a significant reduction in imports, as some economists predict, the revenue collected could fall short of projections. Additionally, the elasticity of demand for the goods subject to tariffs will also impact revenue. If consumers are highly price sensitive and reduce their purchases of these goods significantly, the revenue generated from the tariffs could be lower than anticipated. The uncertainty surrounding the revenue generated from the tariffs makes it difficult to assess their long-term impact on the US economy. But if America gets back to where it was not too many decades ago, it will all have been worth it for the American people. While the administration touts the potential for revenue generation, the actual outcomes remain to be seen. The potential economic consequences of the tariffs, including higher prices for consumers, job losses in certain sectors, and retaliatory tariffs from other countries, could outweigh any revenue gains in the short term, but the long-term play may be very positive for the US. The imposition of tariffs on goods from Mexico, Canada, and China has the potential to strain relations with these key trading partners. All three countries have expressed their displeasure with the tariffs and have indicated their willingness to retaliate with tariffs of their own. Of course, even if they do, the trade balance is much different between exports/imports to and from the US, with many of these countries, with the US operating at a trade deficit. China, in particular, has a history of responding to US tariffs with retaliatory measures. In 2018 and 2019, a trade war between the two countries resulted in billions of dollars worth of tariffs imposed on each other's goods. This trade war had a negative impact on both economies, disrupting global supply chains and increasing uncertainty for businesses. Mexico and Canada, both members of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, may retaliate against the new tariffs. The USMCA, which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was designed to strengthen economic ties between the three countries. The imposition of tariffs undermines the spirit of this agreement and could lead to a deterioration of trade relations. The potential for a trade war with China, Mexico, and Canada is not likely but possible. America doesn't have fair trade due to past globalist governments. If too much tit-for-tat happens around trade tariffs, such a scenario could lead to higher prices for consumers, job losses, and reduced economic growth, but it is not likely. The imposition of new tariffs marks a significant shift in US trade policy. While the administration argues that these tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and reduce trade deficits, critics contend that they will harm the economy and strain relations with key allies. As businesses and consumers adjust to the new trade landscape, it remains to be seen what the long-term impact of the tariffs will be. The uncertainty surrounding the tariffs has already created anxiety in the markets and among businesses. The administration has indicated that it may grant exemptions from the tariffs for certain goods, but the criteria for these exemptions are not yet clear. The possibility of exemptions has created further uncertainty for businesses, as they await clarity on which goods will be subject to the tariffs. The coming months will be crucial in determining the full impact of the new tariffs on the US economy. The response of China, Mexico, and Canada, as well as the administration's willingness to negotiate and grant exemptions, will play a significant role in shaping the future of US trade policy.